This is Barry Wood, the Assessment Division Director for the DLGF. Normally for our monthly webinars, we do not have outside or other agencies give a presentation. However, if you were at the August Assessor Conference up in Fort Wayne at the general opening session, Commissioner Schultz and the other two IBTR commissioners gave a presentation on POPLAR, and we thought it was important to make sure that all those in the assessment community were aware of the new online filing portal. So we invited the IBTR to present, and they were gracious enough to agree to do so. So we appreciate that. Commissioner Schultz has been with the IBTR since 2021. And before he starts, I want to give a disclaimer that if he doesn't touch upon it, I'll at least enforce it. That the IBTR, Commissioner Schultz, the other two commissioners cannot comment on any current or pending cases. So if you have any questions during the webinar pertains to a specific case or situation, the IBTR cannot comment on those. So without further ado, Commissioner Schultz, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Barry. Again, my name is Tim Schultz. I am Commissioner with the Board of Tax Review. I just want to take a moment to appreciate my appreciation for this opportunity to address everybody today and to talk about the Portal for Online Property Legal Appeal and Review, POPLAR. As just mentioned, this is a new online platform that's going to be debuting very soon, which will allow both parties, petitioners and respondents, to manage appeals online virtually. And I'll be walking us through kind of an example of what it's like for a user to file an appeal and what are some of the different key features of the system. And then, as previously mentioned, I think there should be some time to answer questions that anybody might have about the system, how it works, anything I didn't cover. Also, towards the end, I'll try to address just some housekeeping items as far as what's going to be happening next with users, and hopefully find it very educational, and really excited about this platform. So as you should see on your screen, I'm on what would be the home page for POPLAR that would be on the IBTR's website. Once we go live, this page would be hosted on the website, but as you can see, there is a link here to log in with Access Indiana. POPLAR will not actually be hosted on the IBTR website. It will be hosted on Access Indiana, which is managed by the state's IT service agency. But the user experience shouldn't really notice a difference. The only difference is that you will have to log in through Access Indiana. As most agencies use Access Indiana to host their various online portals, there's probably a good chance you already have an Access Indiana account. If you do not, it's very easy to create one. You just need an email address, of course, create a password, So let's go ahead and get started. So we will log in, and the nice thing, as mentioned earlier, this will be a live demo. There's no PowerPoint, which is an indication how close we are to going live. I can interact fully with the system, and as I will today. So that's just an indication that we're very close to being able to go live. Still tweaking a few things here and there, but very close. And you can see this is a temporary email address. This is so that I can show you what you as a regular user, standard user, would see versus my normal account access, which of course has a lot of features that most users would not be able to utilize. So I didn't want to create any confusion. Okay, so this is the POPLAR homepage once you've logged in. Before I start discussing the features and walk us through what it's like to actually submit a petition, there are a couple additional features that are unrelated to POPLAR, but we are about to roll out, and I want to take the opportunity to present those as well. So the first new feature is we've enhanced our final determination search page. As I'm sure many of you know or have experienced over the years, we do publish all of our final determinations, which are searchable with a basic keyword search. As anybody who's had to find something specific, you probably know that it's not the best search feature. It can be difficult to find certain cases that you're looking for. So we've decided to remedy that. As you can see here, obviously we've kept the keyword search option, but you can narrow your search by county, township, type of appeal. So like a 131 versus a 132 petition, particular assessment year, or even a particular time period. Additionally, all of the columns can be sorted. You can sort by any column you want, by petitioner name, township, petition number. Additionally, each of these columns has its own unique search feature. So let's say you want to exclude, for example, all petitions with this particular petitioner from this time period. You just go to does not contain or does not equal and type in the name and whatever, but you can do that in all of these columns. So it's really again, for anybody who's used our search features, you know that this is a giant leap forward as far as making it easier to identify particular cases that you might be looking for. Now this, unlike POPLAR, will be just available on our website. So anybody from the public can access it. You do not have to have an Access Indiana account. This is something that will just be available on the website. Again, it's not part of POPLAR, but we're introducing it at the same time. The other new feature I wanted to show is our hearing calendar. So we are at the same time as we roll out all of these other new enhancements, we are also going to be introducing a hearing calendar. This will document all of the hearings that the board has scheduled. And we've created this feature for a couple different reasons. First, transparency. It gives the public a better idea of what we're doing, how many hearings we might have in a given month or in a year. And second, it's a useful tool for practitioners before the board when trying to identify hearing dates to submit to the ALJ for an appeal. Right now, typically what happens is the parties will get together for a case management conference. ALJ will say, okay, get back to me with some proposed dates. They check their schedules, they do so, but they have no idea if the ALJ is going to be available on those dates. It's usually a year out, if maybe even more, depending on the complexity of the case. This is a tool for those practitioners where they can go in, they can say, oh, there's a hearing already scheduled for that date. It's in person, which you can check by actually clicking on a hearing, and it'll show you if it's in hearing or not. This one I've just clicked on shows you that you got, looks like 6 hearings coming up on that day for that county, and they're all telephonic. If it was in person, there would be an address, typically the board's office address. But again, this is a tool for practitioners to make it a little bit easier and, like I said, provide some additional transparency to the public about how the board operates. Like the enhanced search feature, this is a feature that's available to anybody who visits the board's website. It's has nothing to do with POPLAR. There's no requirement to have an Access Indiana account. It's available to the public without any additional requirements. So let's get back to POPLAR, go back to that homepage. So this is the homepage that both petitioner and respondent would go to when they first log in. You'd see the exact same thing. Obviously, the petitions that you would see at the bottom would depend on which ones you've gotten an appearance in, but the setup would be the same. The first thing I want to point out there is that is the alerts column. So once POPLAR is up and running and people are using it, anytime something happens with a case, so let's say a motion to continue is filed, a brief is filed, the board issues an order, what will happen is an email notification will go out to the parties saying that an event has occurred in POPLAR, please log in and check. But also, if for some reason maybe you can't access your email, if you're just logged in, your alert column will also be updated, telling you that something has happened. And all you need to do is click on the alert, and it'll take you to that particular petition. So if you're a county with hundreds of active petitions that are open, that might be kind of hard to find one particular petition. The system is set up to take you directly there to that appeal. And I'll be revisiting this page to describe some of the features contained here. I'm not going to go into that right now. Just wanted to give you an idea of how those alerts work. So you will get both an email and you'll see alert in the system when you're logged in. So let's see what it's like to actually create a petition and submit it to the board. You can see here, you have the option of starting a new one or finishing a saved petition. So many times a petitioner might start to create a petition and then realize they don't have all of the necessary information. The system lets you save it. You can come back to it at your convenience. Obviously, two types of petitions. We'll do a 131 today. So something I'd like to point out here, and I'll mention it as a couple more times as I go along, is that the system adapts to the information you're providing. And that's evident from the very beginning here, where it asks what kind of signatory you are. So the type of information that the system will request will adapt based on if I say I'm a taxpayer versus an attorney representative. So for example, if I say I'm an attorney representative, among other pieces of information the system's going to ask for, it's going to ask for my attorney number before I can sign. Another thing that I'll point out as I go along is that we've designed this system to really assist taxpayers in filling out a complete and accurate petition. Unfortunately, we receive a large number of defective petitions every year. In fact, some years the percentage of petitions that are defective is in the double digits. And while individuals have the ability to correct those defects, it can be a very time-consuming and inefficient process. One, we receive the petition in the mail, identify whatever the defect is, and then we have to mail it back to that petitioner. They have to make whatever corrective action and then mail it back to us again. As you can imagine, that's fairly time intensive. Unfortunately, some people just give up and they don't send the corrected petition to us. And obviously we have a duty to Hoosiers to make the system as efficient and work for them as best as possible. So I'll point out as we go along some instances where the system will catch you and not let you make any kind of defect or allow for any kind of defect to exist in the petition. So we'll go ahead and say we're an attorney representative. And you'll notice I can't, so these fields will not let me enter any information until I first answer these questions. Again, system is designed just in such a way that you can only take appropriate steps. If I don't say I have another property tax year under appeal, it's not going to let me put a year in here because that would make no sense. Again, you see the same thing here. It's asking if it's a direct appeal. Until I indicate one or the other, these fields will remain blocked. We'll say it's a direct appeal, and the reason, an example of how the system will catch you. So I say it's a direct appeal, but I don't give a reason why it's a direct appeal, and I hit next. System is not going to let me keep going. It's going to, one, keep me on this page, but it's also going to indicate what the error is and where on the page I need to direct my attention. So we'll say maximum time period since is passed for the POPLAR, local POPLAR to take action. I'll just enter in some generic information here. Obviously, this is not intended to be a real property. Okay, And you'll notice here, before I continue, in the authorized representative section, it's already inserted my email address, and it derived that from my Access Indiana account. Everything goes through Access Indiana, so the system is designed to only let you use that email account for purposes of notifications. Another reason why it's automatically inserted is to avoid any kind of error. People writing or typing their email address might accidentally add a letter, miss a letter. Since this is going to be your primary method for receiving notifications, we don't want there to be any risk that there's that kind of error in the document. So got a couple more questions here. Another thing I'd like to point out is if you go back and change something in the document, the system is going to make you go through it to make you go through all the additional steps again, just to make sure you haven't missed something. So I just filled out the authorized representative section because I've indicated I'm an attorney representative. Well, let's say I go back, realize that was an error, and I change it to taxpayer. The system's going to warn me, saying that by doing so, I might need to change some of my answers. So everything here stays the same, but here's an example of the system adapting to the information I've provided. Initially, there was petitioner information and there was authorized representative information. All of the fields for the authorized representative are now gone because I'm filing this as a taxpayer. Again, the system is designed to make it very difficult to include errors and have a potentially defective petition. Of course, we gotta. Now, I'm including some land numbers here. These are not going to be required fields simply because it's possible the taxpayer wouldn't have this information. They might not yet know what they plan to claim for the value of their property. They could have an appraisal ongoing, but they will be required to provide a basis for why they are seeking appeal. Something in here. We still are requiring that they agree to electronic service. That might seem redundant given that they are filling a petition out online, but we still thought that would be a good idea to make sure that they understand that all of the communications will be electronic. Okay. Now you see that there is a acknowledgement of duty to identify and protect confidential information. A lot of individuals might not realize, one, they need to inform us when they're providing us confidential information, and two, that they have a duty to redact confidential information that's irrelevant to an appeal in the documentation they're submitting to us. That's not something obviously we could inform them of when they were filling out a paper form, but now that we're moving towards electronic format, we're taking the opportunity to inform them, hey, please identify this information, and also please remove whatever irrelevant information you can. So you see here, all it's asking for is a copy of the Form 130. That's because I said I am not a tax representative and it's a direct appeal. So I don't have a Form 115 decision, and I don't have a notice of appearance because I'm not an attorney or a tax rep. So, but if I were to go back and change that back to attorney representative, one, it's going to remind me I might have that by doing so might change the information I need to provide. So now I do have to provide the tax rep information. Okay. Okay, so system updated. Now it's asking for a notice of appearance because I'm an attorney. So go ahead and upload those files. One nice thing, one positive change. Any of you who have practiced with the board and submitted materials electronically via email may have encountered the fact that there is a, I believe, 25 megabyte limit on attachments that the state email system will process. POPLAR we actually doubled that for POPLAR. So POPLAR, you can load anything up to a 50 megabyte file, and the system should be able to accept it, assuming it passes the virus scan and all of those things. The sorry. The other nice thing that POPLAR does versus email is if you had a situation where your email got quarantined or you attached something that was too large, we wouldn't necessarily know that email even existed. Moreover, you would not be informed that email had been quarantined or stuck in the system as having too large of a file attached. And then of course you might show up to a hearing thinking everybody's got your exhibits, and then you realize nope, nobody has them, nobody saw anything, and of course that can lead to delay and other inefficiencies. With POPLAR, if you were to submit something that was rejected for whatever reason, it didn't pass the virus scan, it was too large for the system to incorporate, then you'd be notified immediately on this page. Moreover, you would get an email notification saying that submission failed for whatever reason. And there would also be a third way to confirm everything has been successfully uploaded. Going back to that appeal page that I showed earlier for a moment, at the bottom of that document, or at that page, again, we'll go back to it and I'll show you what I mean. It will list all of the successfully uploaded documents, which you can also access and download. But that's a way to just to confirm everything's been submitted, it's successfully in the system. Now, because we have no control over how people name their particular files, I mean, it could be a scanned document and it's just a series of numbers. Every time something is uploaded into the system, we do ask that you attach a file description. And the list is fairly comprehensive. You can see all of these different types of documents are possibilities. So chances are any type of filing that you're going to need to file is going to have an appropriate description here. I do believe there's a miscellaneous. So even if it isn't fit into one of these categories perfectly, chances are you can find some label that will identify it more or less accurately. If you do happen to be uploading something with confidential information, and this is not just when you're creating a petition, everything I'm showing you right now would apply when you're filing something after the appeal has been initiated and the parties are going back and forth with motions, briefs, whatnot. So if you mark something as confidential, you'll see a new pop-up. It asks you to confirm that you've redacted all of the unnecessary information in the document unrelated to the appeal. And if there is still data in there that's confidential, it asks you to identify the page numbers that the confidential information is on. That serves a couple of purposes. One, it makes it much easier during the subsequent hearing for the ALJ to identify if we're dealing with confidential information and when they're writing up the decision. But it also helps protect the parties from our accidental release of confidential information. So for example, if we got a public records request, yes, of course, we're going to review that document or the requested documents. But if we already know there's confidential information in there because you've identified it, that makes our job much easier, and it certainly reduces the risk that we might miss something and accidentally release it. And then we'll see an acknowledgement of service. This is simply to make sure people understand that when you submit something on POPLAR, it's going to all of the parties. It's not just coming to the agency. Any party with an appearance is going to see that document, and we just want them to understand that, acknowledge it before they submit materials to us. So before signing, the system will ask you to review the material or the information you've provided, just opportunity to make sure everything looks right, that you've included all of your reasoning and values and everything that you want the board to have to at least initiate the appeal. Again, another example, the system adapting to the information I provided. It's identified me as an attorney signatory, which means it's going to ask me for an attorney number before I can sign. Just a signature acknowledgement saying that the information is accurate to the best of my knowledge before we submit. And then we will see that you get a transaction ID. You do not get a petition number when you submit a petition. So this is one of the spots where we have a gatekeeper function, is what we call it. Every petition that's submitted to us will be reviewed by our office staff to make sure it's complete, accurate, and it's an appropriate petition. Until we do that, all you have is a transaction ID. You could, now, if you were to submit a petition and weeks go by, you haven't heard it, you haven't got a notification saying it's been the petition's been accepted, and you have a petition number, you can contact our office with that transaction ID, and then we can track that document down and identify what the issue is and take whatever corrective actions are necessary. There's another point where we have gatekeepers. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But the idea is that, well, certainly the system is more efficient than paper filings, and there is certainly some automation. There is still human beings in the loop, keeping an eye on things, making sure things are operating the way they're supposed to and the way they do now, just in a much faster way here. So we'll go back to our petition homepage. You'll see the status here. Submitted means I've submitted it, but it hasn't been accepted by the system yet. Open means it's been submitted. Our team has reviewed it, and it's now an active appeal. On all of these columns are sortable. You can prioritize however you want to have view this. It could be by status, could be by date submitted. It's however you would like it to appear. It's also exportable. So if you just, you're at a county and you want to know how many appeals you've got that you're a party to, you could just hit export and you'll have an Excel sheet listing. It'll not give you just the number of appeals, but obviously it'll have the name, addresses, all of that relevant information that you might want to have just a click away. So let's see what the appeal page looks like. So this is the page we were at earlier, briefly. This page looks the same for both parties. The ALJs might have a couple different functions, but they'll basically see the same thing as well. The first item I want to direct your attention to is the case chronology summary, the CCS. That will document every action that occurs with any given appeal. So from when it's open to a case management conference to submitting briefs to a hearing, all that information will be right there. And that's something that we're very adamant about having, because we know that oftentimes there can be turnover in an assessor's office, there can be turnover at a law firm, and oftentimes you have people coming in who have to quickly get up to speed with an appeal in maybe a very short amount of time. Having that information, knowing exactly the status of the case, what's happened, what's been filed, all in one list right there can be invaluable. So that's a very, very important detail or feature. In addition to that, obviously you can see appeal information, petition number, property information, petitioner information. There's also a message feature here. So as I'm sure most, if not all of you know, that it's not necessarily appropriate to reach out to an ALJ individually about a case. Doing so is often ex parte communication. In those situations, we'll have to remedy it by informing the other party what has occurred and of course what the communication was. This message feature will hopefully greatly reduce that risk. If a party sends a message using the message feature, everybody gets it automatically. So let's say trying to figure out a date that the ALJ is available. By using this feature, if you simply say, ALJ Smith, are you available October 20th, 2025? That will go directly to the ALJ, but it will also go directly to the other parties. And obviously, this is not an issue that really comes up a lot when dealing with tax representatives or attorneys, but we do have a large number of pro se litigants who just simply are not aware of the rule that it's not appropriate to reach out directly to an ALJ. And so there's no malice or ill will in doing so. They just don't know it's not appropriate. Well, having this feature here, that shouldn't ever happen. They shouldn't ever be sending an email to an ALJ because they know the best way to contact them or the other party is in this in POPLAR using this feature. So very excited about that. I think it's going to be a very helpful tool. And again, kind of going back to, I keep talking about efficiencies. We don't have to drop, an ALJ doesn't have to drop everything. And if they get an ex parte communication and cure to that problem, that's just one less thing that they're doing that's really unrelated to their day-to-day activities. So obviously you've got party information. There are no, let me see, let me go see if I can't find a appeal that has some materials attached. And of course, well, I'll just attach something right now. Okay, so okay, so as I mentioned earlier, another way to verify that you've successfully submitted something to the board is to visit this page and go to the bottom and make sure everything that you've submitted is there. So I can see I've got 3 files I've submitted. I can download those files and I can upload more files, as you just saw me do. In fact, this is where once an appeal has been initiated and the petition has been accepted, this is typically where parties will upload most of their materials. Another nice thing about the system, kind of like how I was talking about with the CCS, new representative joins a case, they don't have to worry about tracking down the paper file to see what's actually been submitted to the board. They can log in here and they can see everything that's been filed. They can download everything that's been filed from anywhere, so they don't have to be in the office where the physical file might be. And again, that creates a lot of efficiencies for all of the parties, including the ALJ, when they are trying to get up to speed on a new case. I should also mention that the message feature is also exportable. So I'm sure any of you who've worked with on an appeal from an IBTR decision to the tax court knows that we need to prepare the record. And as part of that, we have to print off and include any related communications that the ALJ might have relating to that case. Well, now the only way to do that is to manually go through the ALJ's email account and hopefully identify all of the relevant communications. Now with this system, we can speed up that process because we know where all those relevant communications are, and we can, with one click of the button, export them out and include those in the record. as you can tell, I keep talking about efficiencies, but I'm very excited about the amount of time that we think this will save, petitioners, respondents, and our ALJs, and just make the overall experience just that much more positive for everybody involved. We've also included a request continuance feature on the appeal page. This is probably the type of motion we receive most commonly. And while it might be the most common type of motion, there's a lot of variety in the types of continuance motions we receive. Again, just using as example, a lot of pro se litigants have never drafted a motion to continue before. They don't really know what they're supposed to look like. By having a standardized form, we capture the information we really need to make a decision on whether or not, one, this is a motion to continue and whether or not it should be granted. So it automatically grabs things like the petition number, and it asks for things like, does the other party object to this? Has there been a motion to continue already submitted? What's the reason for the motion to continue? So we decided to have that particular feature just embedded within the appeal page to make it simpler, faster, and honestly, just to make sure we're getting the information we need to make a decision on such a request. So obviously, I've been talking about creating a new petition, submitting it, what that appeal is going to look like on our website. But you might be wondering, well, how do I get access to an existing case after it's already been created? Well, all you need to do is, I guess it's a two-step process. First, you need to find the appeal that you're looking for. So search open appeals will be an option. This obviously looks a lot like our search page for final determinations. Except obviously these are all open appeals, and you can search however you want. Again, you can limit it by county, keyword, assessment year. Once you do identify the petition that you would like to enter an appearance on, you click on the action button, and because you do not yet have an appearance, the only action that will be available to you is to submit an authorized representative appearance. The system will ask you what type of representative are you? Attorney, tax representative. Are you filing on behalf of the petitioner, the respondent? And then, of course, you'd have to upload your appearance form. We've tried to provide some assistance there, in that there is a link for an example notice of appearance. So if it's just somebody who's not familiar with our procedures or whatnot, that gives them a little bit of guidance. But going back to what I was saying before about gatekeepers, just because you submit an appearance does not give you automatic access to an appeal. Again, just like how the system works now, when we get an appearance here, we will review it to make sure it's accurate, correct, and appears valid. Same thing will happen with POPLAR. That appearance will be reviewed by our staff, who will determine whether or not it appears to be a valid appearance before entering it into the system and then granting that individual access to that appeal file. Again, just trying to keep human decision makers in the loop, so that we're not turning too much of this over to automation. Another feature I'd like to demonstrate or point out is party delegation. Now, we understand that in an assessor's office or a law firm, there might be one person who's ultimately responsible for an appeal, but they want to delegate some of that responsibility to others. So, for example, in a law firm, I might be the attorney representing the county or the petitioner, but all the actual filings are going to be handled by my paralegal. Well, I go to this page, I would enter that person's email address here, hit save. You can see here, and I've created myself as a delegate. And that person would then be your, and you can designate multiple people, would be your delegate who could then log into the system and carry out whatever functions you've asked them to do. There are a couple things just to point out on that. The individual has to have an Access Indiana account, otherwise the system will reject them when you submit their email address to be your delegate. And two, when that individual logs into the system every time, it will default to treating them as if they are there acting in their own capacity. They would have to log in, go to this page, and you can't see it because I delegated to myself, you don't see there's somebody else, somebody I can act on behalf. But under this delegating party, you know, my boss, Assessor Smith, would be there. I could click on that individual, and then I would, a couple things would happen. The email address up here would change. Right now, it's acting as if I'm me. It would indicate that I am me acting on behalf of that authorizing individual. And at that point, any appeal that authorizing individual has access to, I would then have access to and rights to take whatever action I was directed to take. You know, upload a document, file a brief, whatever I was directed to do. So that way, you know, I mean, it could be something as simple. Somebody knows they're going to be out of the country on vacation, you know, for a week or 2 weeks, and they want to make sure that there is somebody who can take action on a particular file should it become necessary. So we think that's a very important feature to have, and I should say, a delegate cannot delegate their authority. So I'm named as a delegate for somebody. I can't then assign that authority to somebody else. It's limited to one step. Moreover, you can remove that. You can take away that authority at any time. Just because you name somebody as a delegate doesn't mean they're a delegate forever. You can obviously update as office needs require. So that is pretty much in a nutshell what individuals will experience when they log into POPLAR and when they either submit a petition or want to look at an appeal or submit a document or to see the status of that particular appeal. I did want to talk about a few other things. We've still got a few minutes. So recently, I know our office sent out a notification to all assessing officials. One, notifying you that POPLAR is going to be going live here in the near future. And we also included a Form 140, which is a new form, asking for you to provide the email accounts that you would like us to enter into POPLAR to be your primary contacts. If you didn't receive the notification or you lost the form, that's fine. It's currently on our website, on our forms page, Form 140. I really encourage all assessing official offices to complete that form, get that back to us. That way, when POPLAR does go live, we will obviously be able to contact you as through the system. Another housekeeping item, we will be amending our administrative regulations mainly to account for filing through POPLAR. Our rules were drafted at a time when it was all paper filing, and we're simply updating those regulations to account for these changes. They're not currently posted on our website, but they will be in the near future. And of course, we'll be adopting them very soon. Couple of other items just wanted to mention. So if you received that notification from our office a couple of weeks ago, you know that there's going to be a transition period once POPLAR goes live. So once we go live, and we'll be sending out another notification when we have decided on a fixed date for the go live. There will be a 30-day window from that period, which will we will be issuing notifications using both POPLAR and paper notifications. Similarly, we will be accepting both paper filings and POPLAR filings for that 30-day window, just to make sure the system's working properly, to get everybody comfortable with it, and just make sure we're not, flipping a switch and then nobody really knows how it works. We want to give people some time to get comfortable with the system. Additionally, we will be making a kind of a guide about the basics of POPLAR available to assessing officials, and I'm sure it'll be on our website. It's still being finalized. I can't share it at this time, but that's something else to be looking for. And then the other thing, I know we've been getting questions about, what about existing cases? How will those be handled? So something that was filed, last month or last year, but it's still open. What will happen with those is one of two things. If those petitioners go online in POPLAR and file an appearance, then we will begin providing notifications, and all the filings can be done electronically through POPLAR. If that individual declines to utilize POPLAR, that's what we would call a hybrid file, where the assessor can still file things with the board through POPLAR, but will be required to serve that individual through traditional means, U.S. mail, and the board would be required to do the same. We could send out notifications that would go to the assessor via POPLAR, but we would have to send out a traditional service document to the individual. We will not be digitizing the records for all of the current appeals. We're talking about hundreds, maybe thousands of cases, and it's just not realistic to digitize all of those materials. So it'll only be materials filed after the go live date, which will be available in POPLAR. And of course, as time goes on, hopefully that and new petitions are filed, hopefully everything will be in POPLAR. But of course, there's going to be a transition period where that we're just going to have to work through the older cases until everything is post go live date. So I think that is that's my presentation. I hope it was informative. Again, I really appreciate the opportunity to address you and be here today. I'm very excited about this project, and I think it's going to make life easier for assessing officials, for petitioners, for people in our office. I think it's a great thing all around. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions about the program.
Yes, we have our first one. Will this also show cases that have been remanded back to the board by the tax court?
Probably, and I say it with a qualifier simply because it depends on what the tax court ordered, what the tax court order requires us to do. Chances are it would be remanded and reopened so that we could take that action. I'd say the answer is really kind of just yes. I'm trying to imagine a scenario where we wouldn't reopen it in that situation. So yes, generally speaking, as far as any situation I can think of off the top of my head, if it was remanded back to the board, we would reopen it in order to take whatever action the court directed us to do.
Okay, great. Our next question is, so we just need to fill out one form and include all emails. Does this include counsel that we may have on the case?
The form is intended for assessing official offices. Councils, the various councils representing, both the counties and taxpayers, they will have to file their own separate appearance on their behalf. The Form 140 is merely intended for assessing officials. Good question.
Okay. We got another one. Here's our next one. Will customers still be able to mail their 131 form?
Yes, we will still be accepting paper filings. We don't anticipate those are going to all disappear. I know that some people prefer using paper and U.S. mail. In those situations, it'll simply be a hybrid file, like I described earlier, where The assessor could still utilize POPLAR for filing things with the board, but they would also have to use traditional service methods to make sure that that filing is sent to the party, typically, U.S. mail or hand delivery. So yes, we anticipate there will still be hybrid files.
Okay, let's see. We got another one that just came in. Recently on the determinations page, there have been 2 new line items on the main page. Petitions resolved in month/year and the number resolved by settlement or dismissal. These numbers seem high by month. What do these mean?
Well, obviously I can't speak about any particular case. I don't know why. I'm sure I can't really speak to if they seem high or not. I mean, the number is what it is. We don't have any control over the parties choosing to settle or stipulate to a case. I mean, they mean what they say. That's just how many particular files were resolved by one of those means in a given month.
Okay, great. Well, that was our last question. We may have a few more that we'll leave it open here for just a minute or two so that if there's any other questions that do pop up, we can get those answered before we wrap up. But during this time, and just as a reminder, we'll send out an email that will have the video, the survey link, as well as the CE form. If you want CE credit, you will need to self-report that on that form. If you're an assessor, you'll send that to our agency. If you are a different elected official, you'll need to send that to your governing body or association or speak with them. If you are an attorney and want CLE credit, you will need to fill out the survey and include your attorney number in the last field where it asks for it. And then we'll get that reported for you. But we do, as I mentioned in the beginning, the survey, we do take all that feedback and review that each month, as well as look at topics for planning for 2025. So if you have other topics that you would like to see that would be helpful for you in your position, please let us know. We do greatly appreciate that feedback that comes in for that. But that will be sent out in an email later this week, as well as posted on the DLGF webinars webpage, so you can access that, all of those attachments in the email and or on our website. I do want to thank Commissioner Schultz for giving us our presentation today. He was able to provide this great content, which we do. I know that it was a popular topic at the Assessors Conference, and also I know that as they get ready to launch that'll be, this was very helpful and insightful about their new system that's coming online. And we'll go ahead and wrap it up. We don't have any other questions that have come up, but if you do, feel free to reach out to IBTR and they will be able to assist you with that. And I'm sure they'll be sending out more information as when they go live. And I know that they're ready for it to be live, just as we have been in the past with our applications. So thank you all for participating, and hopefully we will see you in November at our next webinar. Thank you all for joining us today.